All right, everybody. Good afternoon. Hope things are going well. And we're getting a little bit of a late start today on the position, but got plenty of time to get through the stuff we need to get through. And I mean, the fullback interlude was required. We needed to do the fullback interlude because Kubiak dropped that knowledge on us and had to jump on it while it was still relatively warm. But let's swing to the original plan today, which was wide receiver. Wide receiver, a position where, as of this moment, I think the Seahawks have a small need, but depending on what happens in the next month, they could have a big need. And I think they will very likely have a moderate need. So, what happens next is everything. Right now, you've got DK Metcalf, you've got Tyler Lockett, and you've got JSN. But you really don't have much behind those two guys, or three guys, excuse me, that you feel good about right now. Jake Bobo was a big disappointment last year, made no real impact on the team. Tariq Young just can't stay on the field, and he hasn't really done that much even when he's been on the field. Cody White's a free agent. Maybe you kind of like him because he did have one pretty good game against the Rams, and there's been some stuff about him that I like, but realistically, I don't think you can depend on him for much of anything. He's just kind of an added bonus type player. And what else? What else do you have that you feel good about? So you've got really no depth. And the reality is, it is overwhelmingly likely that Tyler Lockett will not be on the team when the season starts. His contract, his age, his production, it just doesn't make sense to keep him around. There's a possibility that we bring him back on a much cheaper deal. That could happen. But more than likely, I suspect that Lockett will be off the team, will be down to DK Metcalf and JSN. I do think DK is going to get extended, but by the way, that's no guarantee. The only thing we know for sure is that JSN will be here next year because he's still on that rookie deal and he just came off a 100-catch season. But other than that, there's not a lot that we can be sure about at the receiver spot. A guy like Bobo could easily not make the team. A guy like Tariq Young could easily not make the team. So we got to approach this from pretty much any and every angle. All right. So this first video is going to concern the star level free agent receivers. These are guys who are going to command 15 million a year or more according to Spotrac, although in one case I have a big disagreement with Spotrac. We'll get to that later. But yeah, these are the guys who are going to cost maybe not top dollar, but pretty close to top dollar. The number one guy in free agency at receiver this offseason, and one of the guys who will command the biggest offseason contract is T. Higgins. T. Higgins is going to get paid. Second round pick of the Bengals back in 2020. Put together a real nice career there. Had 2,000-yard seasons. Got hurt in 2023. Got hurt last year too. But when he played, he was very productive. And I think having 900 yards in 12 games and 10 touchdowns is going to be more than enough to get him some money. I don't think he needed to have 1,500 yards and play the full season to get paid. He's the best receiver out there. Somebody's going to look at him and say, look, he's producing this while acting as the second man to Jamar Chase, who is a top 3 receiver in football. So therefore, you put him in a situation where he's the number one and he's getting more targets, you can expect some pretty big numbers. And there's certainly truth to that. There's also truth to the concern that some people might have that he's only had limited experience as a number one wide receiver because of Jamar Chase. What is he going to do as a full season number one receiver? That's a little bit less clear. PFF adores him. They had him as a top 5 receiver in 2024, 88.2. Year before that, still good. I mean, closer to the middle. 72.1 is still going to get it done. And he's very good. I think we all know what's up there. Now, the cost, $25.4 million a year. Spotrac says 4 years, $101.8 million. So that is a 9-figure contract by the skin of his teeth, but it's a 9-figure deal. Guy just turned 26, or let's see if PFR has the same. Yeah, he just turned 26. Nothing to worry about with age. He's a bigger guy, proven himself. The thing is, if you're signing T. Higgins, it is almost certainly because you're trading DK Metcalf. Because you don't want to pay DK Metcalf. Now, maybe T. Higgins is better than DK Metcalf. I think at this point, there's a pretty good argument to make there. I think you could definitely make a pretty compelling argument in that direction. But if you're not wanting to pay DK Metcalf, I don't think you're going to want to turn around and pay Higgins. You're not really changing anything all that much, right? Because it's not like T. Higgins is a top 5 receiver. You might have some concerns about him the same way you have concerns about Metcalf. They're just different concerns. And Higgins is probably going to get a little bit less money, but it's the same basic idea. So I don't think this makes sense for the Seahawks, right? And it really doesn't make sense if you're keeping Metcalf, because then you're investing all that into the receiver position when you have a offensive coordinator that doesn't use 3 receivers as much as most others. Excuse me. Okay. So moving on from T. Higgins here, the next big gun is Chris Godwin. And this guy would be right up there with Higgins, if not for the fact that he got hurt, devastatingly so, last season with Tampa Bay. About to turn 29, so kind of in his prime. We'll see how he comes back from the injury. I will admit I'm concerned, but he's had a very productive career. He's been an All-Pro, been a Pro Bowler. He's had 4,000-yard seasons, was probably going to have another 1,000-yard season before he got hurt in 2024. So the guy's great. The guy's put together some really impressive numbers at Tampa, won a Super Bowl there. Comeback player of the year before, so he has come back from adverse circumstances in a previous season. And PFF likes him a lot too. They had him in the top 10 in 2024 among qualifying receivers. And the year before that, he was top 25, 78.2. I mean, they're good scores. They're good grades. This is a player that PFF has a lot of respect for. And you look at Spotrac, it's not quite T. Higgins, but it's close. They have 3 years, $67.6 million, $22.5 million a year. But again, if the Seahawks keep DK Metcalf, you're not going to throw a bunch of money at a Chris Godwin. So same thing as T. Higgins, right? Doesn't make sense if you keep him. And if you trade him, are you really going to turn around and give a bunch of money to Chris Godwin? Again, Chris Godwin might be better than DK Metcalf. I'm not saying otherwise. That's not what this is about. But not paying DK Metcalf should signal a change in strategy on how you're building your team. It should signal that you're trying to get cheaper and younger and maybe more reliable at receiver, I guess. And Godwin is more reliable than DK Metcalf on the field, but the thing is, the injury, how much can you depend on him in 2025, right? DK's missed 2.5 games in his whole career, 3 games total, maybe. So it's a different kind of player you can't really depend on right now. So Godwin, it's the same thing as Higgins. Good player, would be great to have, but it just doesn't make sense here. So either way, not into this one. Somebody will be. Okay, this next one, I'm going to be honest. I'm just going to say it. This one confuses me. Somebody's going to have to explain this one to me. I put him in this video because I'm going by Spotrac, but look at this. Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton just turned 28, so I guess he's in his prime. Won the Alan Page Award for community work or something in 2024, so that's cool. But let's take a look here. So 700 yards, 700 yards, 700 yards, 700 yards. Every now and then, like in 2021, he missed a bunch of time. Yeah, last year he missed a little bit of time. His peak season in terms of production is like 750, 775 yards, that range, right? Had 8 touchdowns as a rookie, I guess. Okay. Catch percentage. I know he hasn't had very good quarterback play, I guess. But Is there anything here that excites you? Is there anything here that gets your motor revved as a football fan? PFF will tell you that he was one of the worst graded receivers in football in 2024, 91st out of 98. Bad, like real bad. And the year before that, it was better. 67.5 is good, but it's still barely ranked in the top 60. Still way more receivers higher than that than lower than that. Receivers another position where things are skewed towards higher scores. And yet, Spotrac is trying to tell me that he's going to get 16 mil a year. 3 years, 47.3 million. So, you guys, maybe somebody out there knows something I don't. Is there something going on here? Is this money laundering? Is there a money laundering operation running through Darius Slayton? Like, they got, like, Tommy DeVito's on the Giants. So maybe the Mafia has something to do with it. I don't know. But this doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why Slayton would get any more than like $4 million a year, probably a 1-year deal. He's coming off one of the lesser seasons of his career. He's never peaked at anything other than a decent receiver. He's never proven that he's never indicated to me that if you just gave him a really good quarterback, he'd be a Pro Bowler. Like, I don't see that with him. I know he hasn't had great quarterback play, but how is this guy going to cash in? How is this guy going to get a contract approaching $50 million? I put him in this video because Spotrac marked him as a guy who's going to get paid, but I got to be honest, I don't believe it. But somebody try to convince me of something here. So, if somebody would like to pay $47.5 million for Darius Slayton, line up, let me know. But let's move on. There's one guy left. This is the veteran, DeAndre Hopkins. About to turn 33, buyer beware. Just wrapped up a season with the Kansas City Chiefs, where came close to winning a Super Bowl. If you combine what he did in Tennessee and Kansas City, it was a decent season. We're obviously going to extend a little bit of grace to a player who got traded mid-season. As a receiver, you need to build rhythm with your quarterback that you're not going to have right off the bat. So there is a little bit of grace here, but it wasn't a very good season. 2023, he had a 1,000-yard season, so that kind of showed that he was still able to produce at a higher level after 2 off seasons in Arizona. But the days of him being a double-digit touchdown guy, the days of him being a 1,100, 1,200, 1,300, 1,400-yard receiver seem like they're gone. The all-pro days are over. It does seem like he is at the end of the line here. Maybe a full season with one team with a good quarterback could restore him to some credibility here. I don't know. It's it's tough because he is a bigger guy, and he's always going to be able to use his size, right? For some reason, I have a hard time buying his 6'1", but there is some stuff that he's going to be able to do even at old age. But I don't think he's ever getting back to like that top 12 receiver area. Hard for me to buy it. PFF did like him in 2024, although it is worth noting this is not even in the top 25% for a receiver, 78.6. Year before that, they liked him a lot too, 81. So there was gas in the tank. I don't know if there's going to be gas going forward. 19th out of 85 receivers just in 2023 with Will Levis throwing him the ball. So, by the way, I still love Will Levis, but right now the evidence is incontrovertible until he provides new evidence. All right. Spotrac thinks he's getting paid $15 million for 1 year. Call it 15.2. So he is in that kind of star receiver range still, especially on a 1-year deal where you don't have later years to push most of the money into, right? So buyer beware here. Again, I didn't even really say what I felt about the Darius Slayton thing because I thought it was pretty obvious, but I don't see how I can make this make sense for the Seahawks. You'd have to be like, okay, we're trading DK Metcalf, and we just want a good receiver for 1 year. but that's it, just the 1 year, and then we want long-term options open, so we're going to get Hopkins. I don't like it. I don't see it. I'm not feeling it. But let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks.